This card almost had me fooled, but we notice all the errors on here, here, and here. Let's take a look at my Weezing 199. And for your convenience, if you'd like to take a look at the timestamps here, you can jump to the part that best suits you. Into the first phase, we actually want to talk about the card value and whether it's actually worth grading or not, because I don't want you to waste your money and I don't want to waste mine, but we're going to waste mine anyways. Mine's about $6 for the card, is about what I paid for it. And to grade the card, we're going to go through tag grading. So it's $20 to actually grade it and then $5 for shipping. But if you bundle this card with a bunch of other cards, you do actually save a few bucks because the shipping is kind of spread out between the two. But for the sake of argument, we're going to say $25. Now, how you got the card does matter, because if you pulled the pack, you could say it's generally free, or you could say it's $5 to the pack, whatever you want to say. But buying the card, you outright already spent $6, and you have to get a tag 10 to really make a difference here. So you get $88 on a tag 10, on a tag 9, you're only making $8. So there's definitely no profit unless you're guaranteeing yourself a 10. Now, the first thing that I like to do is scan the card and go to the TAGGrading website, which is a free website to use, and then upload that image. It has a little advertisements here and there, but not a problem. And then we're just gonna get the lines that you can see obviously on this card. And then there's 2 lines for each edge of the card. You're going to align one on the inside border and one on the outside, and it's going to measure that difference. And then you're going to do that for both sides in the top and bottom. Here, we know that the tolerance for PSA and tag is a 10% tolerance, which means we want to be, if you're to subtract the 2 numbers for top and bottom, it should be less than 10%. On here, we have a 28% difference. And so if one of the top and bottom or left and right differences is more than 10%, you're automatically out of the gem mint tolerance. So if you're going for a 10, you probably want to stop grading at this point, because you know you're not going to fall into this. Now, the big thing we want to do here is just make sure that we're focusing on getting those lines directly on the border, on the inside and outside. If you don't get that right, it might be a few degrees off. Now, as we do the same thing for the back of the card, we're taking a look here, and PSA and tag are way more lenient than DegreeGrading to get a gem mint 10. PSA has a 50% tolerance, which basically means anything goes for you. Tag has a more conservative 30%, which is much more reasonable, and it's not as much of an impact appeal to your eye when you're looking at the card. Here we can see that it meets 14% difference on top and bottom, and then left and right 16%. Because both of those met within the PSA 50% and tag 30%, it's considered gem mint 10 on the back, but you have to have both front and back to get gem mint. Now, with all that said and done, let's go ahead and move on to the surface of the card. Now, the first thing that I personally like to do is get my microfiber cloth, which I actually have right here, and I like to wipe off the front of the card first, and then I will do back later. But I just put it underneath an angled light and just kind of shimmy that back and forth. And what that allows me to do is see any kind of dents that might appear, any dots or blemishes that you normally wouldn't see underneath like a normal light from your room, or just like a basic light that it's just very, very tight, like using a flashlight in your phone. That does work if you need it in a tight pinch. But if you have a big light to hang, put over it, you want to use that. The front of this card looked great. On the back of the card, we kind of take a quicker look here, and I pull out my microscope so we can film in, and we actually notice that there's some kind of blemish here. I don't know if it's an indentation or a scratch, but it looks like there's a dot in the card, which could just be a discoloration print. So that is something that's probably going to be held against us here. So as we go through and we're looking at the rest of the back of the card, we're evaluating for any other issues, and we do notice a slight, what looks like scratches kind of going up the top. It's very minimal. But overall, for the surface of the card, this is pretty clean for the most part, except for a small dot in the back and then minor scuffing. Let's go ahead and move on to the corners and edges. Now, I think the corners and edges is actually a pretty fun spot to do this with. I personally have a black light, which I don't use in this video here. It's a newer thing I started doing because I saw someone use it at a card show, and they showed me that the silvering and whitening on the card really pops out, and this helps also for your surface. So it's not just a corner and edge thing, but also surface as well. As I'm looking at the card, I'm doing the exact same thing I would do on the surface. I'm looking at underneath an angled light, and I'm just tilting it back and forth to see if any silvering or whitening pop up. I pull out my microscope because I think I see a small white speck, and as I'm looking at it and I look closer, you can see that like whiteness that's happening there. There's a difference between a speck and like actual damage and factory cutting. And in this case, this is a factory cut, so they're probably not going to actually hold that against you. Now, as we continue to look at the corners and edges of the card, we're looking for anything that might stand out. Again, whitening and silvering is your biggest damage. Also, layer separation can pop up. And here I point out there's a small dot on the border. So again, let's go ahead and pull out the microscope and check out how much damage this actually does. Side note though, is that if you need a microscope, it's not that big of a deal. It's something that should be apparent to your naked eye. So as we look here, we can obviously see that there's a white speck on here, and one white speck like that is very minor. It may not even impact you, especially if it's just one. It's still possible to get a gem mint 10 with a white speck. Now let's move on to the last step, the predicted grading. Now, honestly, this card overall was in actually good condition. We had a white speck on the back border. We had some surface damage a little bit on the back of the card. We also had a corner issue with a white speck, some light scuffing, but nothing serious. And just based off of that, I would say that the card would usually get a 9. The thing here is that the card is actually very off-centered on the front, and the off-centering, this is kind of new to me. I'm usually just looking for gem mint, but it's very off on the front, and I could see that impacting it at least 1 grade. So I'm going to assume that this Weezing is probably going to come back as an 8. Now that's my official review, and I'm putting this card to DegreeGrading. Now this is a new session to the series, which is I actually got the grades back in time. Because this is a new channel, I've been very backlogged on actually getting the cards. So fortunately for me, this is the first card I'm actually gonna be able to reveal the final grade on the same video as the predicted grade. These are all 10 cards, which I will be releasing in my grade reveals weekly, and I'll probably start doing them twice a week. And I'm submitting a lot more cards. I'm going through TAGGrading now. They're way faster to get back. So future videos, you should not only have to do the pre-grade review with me, but you'll also get the answer at the end. So keep an eye out for that. The one thing I want to say is TAGGrading is really nice about their packaging. You can see right here that you have all 10 cards that I graded. I did a bulk of 10, very affordable, and it has really, really nice foam on the inside. So really, really cool. And they also come in these really nice, let me just, like this, the slabs here are actually quite beautiful. They come in a plastic cover, all of them do, to keep protected. So let's go ahead and check this out together. Now, before we jump into this, I want to give you 3 seconds to comment down below what your grade is, or at least think about it, okay? And then I'm going to show you the grade reveal. Now let's take a quick look at this beautiful Weezing. And we got a 9. Wow, okay. That's actually quite surprising for me. I did guess an 8, so I'm a whole grade lower than this. Now this is the slab that you're going to get from DegreeGrading if you decide to go with them. Pretty nice slab. It has that kind of frosted cover to it, and pretty decent label on it as well. But we can see here has our certification number and the gem mint, or the mint 9 on the front. And then as we flip this over onto the back, you can actually see that they leave the scoring, oh, wrong finger, right here. So they break it down as surface, corners and edges, centering, and then -4 or +1 for dents and creases. And we can see here that we got a perfect 3 out of 3 on surface, 3 out of 3 on corners and edges, and a 2 out of 3 on centering. Centering was the only thing that really impacted us here negatively, but maybe I was being a little bit too critical about this, but I definitely thought that the centering was going to be an impactful thing, a full grade, and we were right about that. It went from a 10 to a 9 because of that. However, I thought that the potential damage on the corner, the one dot that we saw some blemishes on the card as well, but I did say that the one white speck may not actually impact a grade, and you can still get a gem mint 10. So but if this card centering was perfect, this could have been a 10. But I don't know, I'm not sure how I feel about this. I feel like if I sent this to TAGGrading, I might get an 8 to an 8.5. I think that's probably more accurate. Now I would do the experiment of cracking it and resubmitting it to TAGGrading, but that's expensive. So for a $6 card, I don't think I'm gonna resubmit this. What I'll probably do is just crack it and then keep it raw in my personal collection, use it in my trade binder or something along the way, or maybe I'll just leave it in the slab and use it as a giveaway item in the future. So yeah, thank you for enjoying this whole journey with me. I'm finally catching up. If you like this sort of content, please leave a subscribe and follow. Until next time, keep guessing that grade.